Part 130. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1291. After trapping Zhou Pao here, Zuyun didn't need to rush to ask him questions. It seemed that he could go to Xianxia now. If there were some things Xianxia said that he didn't understand, he could ask Zhou Pao again. There was a grudge between the Darong King City and the Dian King City, so it was naturally impossible for the two to meet. As for the questions about the immortal roots, it might not be too late to ask when he had time. However, after learning from Fenxian that the origin of the Qingping immortal kingdom was indeed the original Qingping star, Zuyun had to be more alert. He also thought that if all the people of the Qingping immortal kingdom were included, it's not impossible. Anyway, Qingping star was destroyed, and the heavenly Dao collapsed and could not ascend. If the rules of his own great universe world began to be perfected, a new heavenly Dao would be formed one day, which would not be impossible for the immortals of the Qingping immortal kingdom. But there was another question: would the great universe world become a world star? If it did, what level would it be, and would it also become a world star in the immortal world? Zuyun couldn't figure this out. However, it is still too early to achieve something that even the immortal emperor has not achieved. After leaving the great universe world, Zuyun once again sacrificed the burning heaven flame. Fenxian, you just walk under the sun, we will go along this river to find someone. Zuyun said with a smile. Burning heaven flame said, Master, who are you looking for? You don't know her. She is from the Qingping immortal kingdom, but after she learned that this immortal kingdom could not ascend, she wanted to rely on me to get to the spiritual world, so she will help me temporarily sneak into Dian King City to escape the pursuit of Daong King City. Zhou Ye died, and Daong King City sent Zhou Pao. But Zhou Pao did not die, he felt temporarily safe. Strange, strange, Zhou Pao's breath has disappeared. Daong immortal king changed a chair, hunched over, and held his chin and muttered to himself in a deep voice. Zhou Pao is missing. Below, a group of immortal officials looked at each other. They are immortal officials of Daong King City, all of whom have Zhou family blood. In other words, they all have Zhou family blood flowing in their bodies, and the immortal king can sense the whereabouts of the clan members within the family through the Zhou family secret technique. This is also the foundation for these royal cities to stand, because they are united enough. Could it be that Zhou Pao has found out of your Majesty's perception range? Zhou Pao's speed is very fast. An old man whispered. No, it's impossible, said the immortal King Daong. No matter how fast Zhou Pao is, he is not as fast as me, unless he goes to the jurisdiction of another royal city. But the nearest Dian royal city is also thousands of miles away. Someone else stood up and said. Could it be that Zhou Pao wants to defect from our Zhou family? Impossible, Dian royal city has a grudge against us. Although it is not obvious, there are many secret fights. The last time His Majesty went to the imperial city, didn't he say that as long as he met the stragglers of the Shui family outside Dian city, he would kill them without mercy? For a while, these officials expressed their opinions and guessed where Zhou Pao was going. Immortal King Darong pondered for a moment, then suddenly stood up and said, Come on, follow me to Dian King City. After this, the whole place was silent. After a while, an old man said, Your Majesty, will this cause misunderstandings in the imperial city? As long as we don't take action, the imperial city won't misunderstand, said Immortal King Darong. Let's go and see the reaction of the imperial city of Dian. You know, the Shui family sent a branch clan member to Duxian town in the name of training. Or, let's go to Duxian town to take a look. Another old man said. It's okay to take a look. Ask the mayor over there if the Shui family is there. If not, we will go directly to Dian King City. At the command, all the immortal officials moved immediately, and the golden light on their bodies surged, and they all rushed out of the city. Immortal King Derong flashed, and then a golden light flashed across his forehead, and a light boat flew out like an arrow, and immediately became larger after hovering. A group of immortal officials came up one by one. In addition to the more than 10 people in the Immortal King Palace, there were more than 100 people. These were also members of the Zhou family, but they were not middle-grade immortal roots, but low-grade immortal roots with strong practicality and combat power. Like the immortal officials with sword and shield immortal roots in Duxian town. But just after they moved, a man in a golden robe stood up in the imperial city. What is King Derong going to do? He was intimidating without anger, and his tone was calm, but it carried a momentum that made everyone look down on him. Immortal Emperor, what is King Derong doing? A servant beside him came forward respectfully and asked in a low voice. King Derong and King Dian had a private fight last time. If I hadn't gone there, I'm afraid only one of the two royal cities would be left. This time, King Derong suddenly raised an army again, and the closest to him is the king city of Dian. Immortal Emperor, should we go over to stop him? Let's go over and see first, you stay in the city, I'll go alone. As soon as the words fell, a golden light flashed across the forehead of the Immortal Emperor, and then he disappeared instantly. After a while, this man slowly spoke with a gleam in his eyes, as if talking to himself, the Immortal Kingdom is about to change. Zuyun didn't know what kind of chain reaction he caused after throwing Zhou Pao into the great universe world. At this time, he was rushing there quickly with the burning heaven cave river. After a few hours, the sky darkened, the yang fire disappeared, and the burning heaven flame also hid back in Zuyun's forearm, and Zuyun also sped up. Until dawn, he saw a figure, it was Xuexiyan. Inspector Xue. Zuyun called out with a smile, and Xuexiyan turned his head sharply. Blessings to the immortal. Her tone was full of surprise, and she breathed a long sigh of relief in her heart. You are finally here. We have to change the road here. If we go down the Duanxian River again, we will go somewhere else. Is there any other royal city down here? Zuyun asked casually. Daqian King City. Daqian Immortal King is not an easy person to get along with. If you trespass into their jurisdiction, you will be locked up first. Zuyun nodded, and then said, let's go and have a look at Dian King City. Can you recommend me to join your Xue family? Of course it's possible, Xuexiyan nodded and said, as long as Immortal Zhu demonstrates that mysterious boxing technique again, and I'm my guarantee, it won't be a problem. Zuyun still had some concerns in his mind, not because he doubted Xuexiyan, but because he didn't know much about Dian King City after all. I wish you, Immortal, to rest assured that you are just an ordinary immortal official and will not participate in the internal affairs of the palace. Every year we recruit many people who have awakened the middle-grade immortal roots. Seeing that Zuyun was silent, Xuexiyan explained again. Is the immortal root also awakened? Zuyun only regarded the immortal roots as spiritual roots, but other than that, he didn't know much about them. Of course, everyone will awaken their immortal roots. However, some people may have immortal roots at birth, while some people may not be able to awaken their immortal roots until their death. Once their immortal roots are awakened, they cannot be changed for life. Zuyun thought for a moment and asked, is the level of the immortal root determined when it awakens? That's not the case, Xuexiyan said with a smile, immortal roots can also be upgraded. Related to this is either talent or hard training. In fact, I was originally a low-grade foot immortal root, but after hard training, I have become a middle-grade leg immortal root. Otherwise, as a branch clan member, I can only stay in the city as an errand boy. I see, Zuyun felt relieved and said, then what kind of existence does my so-called seasonal immortal root belong to in this fairy land? How do you say that? Xuexiyan thought for a moment and said, the immortal root of seasons is a very mysterious existence. In fact, it depends on talent. It can change the seasons within a certain range and promote changes in vitality. When it is strong to the limit, it is actually a kind of the law of heaven. All things reincarnate, which means that each of our immortal roots is actually a law. Xianxia sighed again and said, the way of heaven is incomplete, and the upgrade of our immortal roots has become much more difficult. On top of the high-grade immortal roots, there are also top-grade immortal roots. The top-grade fairy roots break through to the limit and cultivate the power of laws. You can ascend to the upper realm and become an immortal. I see. Zuyun nodded. Maybe this is the difference between the cultivation of heaven-level world stars and their yellow-level world stars. But there is one thing he agrees with, talent and hard work. Then I wonder if Detective Shue's leg immortal root will be upgraded to a high-grade immortal root. What kind of immortal root will it be? Of course I still have leg immortal roots, Shuexian said with a smile. If I can cultivate to the top-grade leg immortal roots, I can cross mountains and seas with just one kick. If I reach the top-grade immortal roots, I'm afraid I can even cross the stars. It is said that there is another ancestor of our Xue family who is also a leg celestial being. He cultivated it to the extreme and crossed space and time with one kick, directly reaching the immortal world. Zuyun was stunned. How could he still do this? Frowning, he added, aren't you originally a low-grade foot immortal root? Doesn't this immortal root never change? That's not entirely true, Shuexian said with a smile. Feet are also on the legs. Before, I understood the immortal root of legs from the 8 words journey of 1,000 miles, starting with one step. Zuyun shook his head and clarified something, and said, then, your foot immortal root can be upgraded to the leg immortal root, just like the leaf immortal root can be upgraded to the tree immortal root. Is that understandable? That's about it. Shuexian was like a teacher, constantly explaining Zuyun's doubts. The more Zuyun learned, the more he was shocked. The finger immortal root can be cultivated into the palm immortal root, and the palm immortal root can be cultivated into the hand immortal root. If Shuexian said that he could step to the immortal world with one leg, could the immortal root in his hand be able to call across the heaven and reach the immortal world with a slap of his hand? This Qingpingzing's way of heaven is really unbelievable. The two of them walked for a long time, and at dawn, a huge city appeared in their sight. From a distance, the city walls are modeled, as if they have existed for countless years. The huge city gate is like the mouth of a giant beast. Countless immortals or immortal people are entering and leaving the city, as if Dian City is swallowing and practicing. Zuyun stopped talking and followed Shuexian to the city gate. Hey, Xian is back. The two guards obviously knew Shuexian and greeted him with a smile. Shuexian took out a token and said, I found a talent in Duxian town, so I brought him to join our Xue family. Maybe he will be a colleague of you in the future. Xian is really thoughtful. Can you come back from Durong? Aren't you afraid that people in Durong will find fault with you and say you left your post without permission? One of the guards said with a smile. Don't be afraid. I'm not on duty in Dereiwang City. I'm a detective in a small town under my jurisdiction, monitoring the beast tide. It happened that the beast tide had just passed, and I thought there wouldn't be another beast tide, so I hurriedly brought him here. Shuexian had already thought of his words, and since he was a member of his family, Zuyun and the two entered the Dian King city easily without any obstruction. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1292. In a palace in the south of the city, Shuexian led Zuyun to the door. Xian, you haven't been back for a long time. A middle-aged man showed a kind smile, but did not look at Zuyun. Uncle Ninth, after all, I am within the jurisdiction of Derong King City. How can I dare to run around? It was only this time that I took advantage of the beast tide in their town and took the time to come here. Shuexian still said the same thing. The middle-aged man nodded, then looked at Zuyun and said, Do you want to join the guard of our Dian King city? Exactly. When facing strangers, Zuyun can still speak as little as possible. After all, too many words lead to mistakes. Xian said, "Are you the seasonal immortal Gen? That's very good. You come with me to the martial arts hall. It just so happened that one of our deputy city guards was demoted recently. I can trust the people Xian brought here. But first you need to show your strength." The middle-aged man paused and said, "Of course, if you are not qualified to be the deputy city guard, I will arrange for you to be a patrol here. My surname is also Shui, but like Xian, you can call me Ju Uncle." "Thank you very much Uncle Ju." Zuyun cupped his hands and kept his original indifferent expression, not being too close or flattering. "Bring it on." Uncle Ju turned around, and Xuesian was about to follow, but he was stopped by Uncle Ju. "It's rare for you to come back, so you'd better go home and take a look, otherwise you'll have to rush back to Duxian town later and won't be able to see you." "Uncle Ninth, isn't it too late?" Xuesian said coquettishly. "Good boy, listen to Uncle Ju. You can go back and take a look now. It's too late to come over later." Speaking of this, Xuesian had no choice but to wink at Zuyun and leave. Zuyun followed Uncle Ju and walked all the way into the depths of the city. After twists and turns, a huge martial arts arena appeared in front of him. In the arena, there were many immortals making preparations, or wearing the uniforms of Dian King City. Armor, and also wearing ordinary protective clothing. He couldn't help but wonder, could this city guard be fought for by himself? After all, he is also an immortal official. However, he did not ask Uncle Ju any more, but decided to take a look before talking. Uncle Ju led him to a table and said to the immortal official sitting there, "Register him and draw a lot." He was brought back by Xian. Xian introduced him. The immortal official smiled, raised his head and glanced at Zuyun, and said, "Since Xian went to Darong King City to practice, she has not picked up anyone for us. I wonder if she can bring people from Darong King City. Who is this immortal friend?" Zuyun raised his eyebrows and said, "Zuyun, seasonal immortal root." "Seasonal immortal root? Is it at the middle level?" The immortal official looked happy and asked quickly. "Yes. Yes, yes, there are more than 10 people competing for the middle grade immortal root of the city guard this time. It's really fierce." The immortal official wrote down Zuyun's name and immortal root, and took out a spiritual stone with the words 15 written on it. "You have 15 groups. Each group has a middle grade immortal root. We will compete later. We are very optimistic about the people Xian brings back." Mentioning Xuesian again made Zuyun somewhat confused. Is Xuesian so popular in Darong King City? And I heard from this immortal official that Xuesian often picked up people from outside before. But this time, Xuesian brought him here mainly because of his rift with Darong King City, so as to avoid Darong King City's search for foreigners from the immortal world. In short, it's an escape. "Zhu Xianxia, what are you?" The immortal official couldn't help but ask curiously when he saw Zuyun stop talking after taking the spirit stone. "No, I'm just feeling a little emotional. When I first came to this treasured land." Zuyun came to his senses and said casually, "There is no need to lament. Among the 38 royal cities in the Immortal Kingdom, our King of Darong is the only one that will accept people with foreign surnames. There is no need to make a fuss." The immortal official inadvertently revealed some information to Zuyun. Zuyun secretly remembered it in his heart and said with a smile, "Then who am I next?" "Just follow Uncle Ninth, otherwise I must go there to watch the battle of seasonal immortal roots in person. After all, I have never seen seasonal immortal roots in my life." This immortal official was extremely friendly, which made Zuyun suddenly realize that when he mentioned Qingping Immortal Kingdom, he was all domineering and arrogant, as well as showing contempt for other mortals, which made him feel a little fond of this immortal official. But that's all. If they knew that they were a foreigner from the fairyland, they didn't know how they would treat them. Okay, come with me. At this time, Uncle Ju spoke from the side. Zuyun gently said goodbye to the immortal official, and then followed Uncle Ju to the edge of the martial arts field. You can hurt people, but you can't kill. You can use any method, that's the only rule. If the opponent begs for mercy or falls off the ring, he loses. Uncle Ju gave a brief introduction, then patted Zuyun on the shoulder and said with a smile, Xianxia, I'm optimistic about you. Thanks to Uncle Ju for your kindness, I hope you will do your best. Zuyun cupped his hand again. Uncle Ju didn't say anything, turned around and left. He was the top person in charge of the city here, and it was impossible for him to stay here just for Zuyun. In an instant, only Zuyun was left here, and his eyes were also aimed at the martial arts field. At this time, the competition has not yet begun, but the martial arts field has been divided into 15 sections, and in the middle, there is an immortal official standing quietly, with a touch of golden light on his forehead. He has obviously mastered the immortal roots, but I can't tell that he is Xianxia. Zuyun's heart moved. Seeing that no one noticed him, he carefully used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique and looked at the immortal root. Under the blessing of the spell, the power of the immortal roots immediately magnified in Zuyun's eyes, and he couldn't help but frown. I saw that the immortal root was sometimes round, sometimes square, and sometimes turned into an irregular shape. The immortal roots are constantly changing, and the only thing that remains unchanged is the color. This is Xianxia, so mysterious. Zuyun thought about it, but couldn't think of the reason. He just kept it in his heart and planned to ask Xianxia when he had time. Uncle Ju said that after Xianxia went home and took a look, he would come back to watch the battle and give he cheered. After watching for a while, there was a noise from the audience. It was obvious that the competition was about to begin. Zuyun withdrew the void-breaking spirit eye technique and was ready to prepare. Neither Uncle Ninth nor the immortal official said anything about how to choose an opponent, and Zuyun didn't ask too much, so he probably didn't need to worry too much. He didn't speak, but just looked at the crowd. At some point, there were some immortals in different costumes behind him. It should be in the same group as myself. Just as he was secretly guessing, another person came running outside the martial arts arena. Looking at the half-body golden light, it was undoubtedly Xianxia. Inspector Xue. When Xianxia came running over, Zuyun smiled and said hello. Not bad, caught up. Xianxia also smiled and said, hasn't it started yet? Zuyun shook his head, took out the spirit stone engraved with the characters 15, and said, how do you know I'm here? Of course I'm asking Xianxia. Here, he's the immortal official sitting over there. Zuyun followed her finger and saw that it was indeed a registered immortal official. It turns out his name is Xianxia. Inspector Xue, Zuyun asked in a low voice, is this competition to choose one person among these 100 people? I asked my dad, this time I want to choose a deputy city guard. However, a fairy stone mine was recently discovered in the royal city, and the income has increased significantly, so I plan to expand the scale of the patrol. After all, you can only support people if you have money. Fairy stone mine. Zuyun frowned. He always thought that the hard currency here was spiritual beads, but now there are immortal stones. Xianxia looked around and saw that no one was paying attention, so he lowered his voice and said, Lingzhu only circulates among ordinary immortals. We, the royal city's large transactions and so on, still go through immortal stones. We not only do we have quarrels with the royal city of Darong, but we also have some conflicts with other royal cities, but they are far away, so there are not many conflicts. Zuyun thought for a moment and said, is it because Dian City will take in all the immortals if they don't investigate? Maybe. Xianxia was not sure, and said, these are not things that I can know at my level. Maybe after completing the training in Duxian town this time, I can go to the Imperial City to report on my work, and then return to the Imperial City. You'll know. Zuyun shrugged, and became a little more interested in Qingping Immortal Kingdom. This way of ruling seemed to establish a balance among the 38 royal cities. But what the purpose is, I still can't guess. After chatting for a few more words, in the martial arts arena, a golden light suddenly bloomed. Only then did Zuyun remember it. He looked at the immortal official in the martial arts arena and asked, "Do you know what kind of immortal root he is?" "He is the city lord," Xianxia said with a look of admiration in his eyes. "He is a top-grade immortal root, and what he awakens is, the space immortal root." Space immortal root. Zuyun's expression changed. The great universe array immortal once said that space and time are the most powerful laws in the fairy world. There are many immortals who have mastered them, but those who are proficient can only take one palm, and all of them are powerful. Based on his current understanding of immortal roots, most people will only practice on their own immortal roots. Yes, space immortal root. This martial arts arena will be divided into 15 independent spaces later, and the city lord will be the referee. Zuyun frowned and said, "Isn't the city lord the immortal king?" "Of course not. The immortal king is the immortal king, and the city lord is the city lord. The city lord is in charge of the internal affairs, and the immortal king is the external one. Generally, they do not interfere with each other." "So that's it?" Zuyun nodded secretly and made a decision in his heart. It seems that he must take the position of city guard. If he can get close to the city lord, maybe he can get some insights on space from him. At this time, the golden light suddenly converged again, and then subdivided, and the city lord's unpredictable space fairy route suddenly formed 30 golden threads. There is no doubt that these golden threads are all pseudo-immortal power, and they fell into the crowd. The person who was irradiated disappeared instantly. Apparently, as Xianxia said, he was selected into the martial arts field controlled by the city lord. The competition officially begins. But on the martial arts field, a more mysterious scene was revealed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1293. Looking around, the martial arts arena, which was evenly divided into 15 open spaces, had become an independent space. Zuyun could clearly see 15 pairs of people starting to compete. This space fairy route is really powerful. Zuyun was horrified, and even more afraid of Qingping Immortal Kingdom. But fortunately, I have no intention of becoming an enemy of the 5 cities of Dian, and I am just here to hide temporarily. According to what Xianxia told him, since Dian King City will accept people from the outer city, it should be easier to release people from the outer city. However, this is just speculation. Zuyun just watched like this. There were 15 battles, some were fast and some were slow, but as soon as it ended, a golden thread would be shot out, and another person would be selected from the crowd to enter the battle again. It seemed like there was no chance to rest at all. It seems unfair, but no one complained at all. Xianxia, people with middle-grade immortal roots will basically appear at the end. You can watch slowly and get familiar with it. If there is anything you don't understand, just ask me. Xianxia suddenly spoke. Well, I know, but won't you be chosen here? Of course not, Xianxia said with a smile. I don't have the stone, and the city lord wouldn't choose me. He chose based on the stone. Zuyun pondered for a moment. The stone in Xianxia's mouth was a spiritual stone, so this meant that the city lord was sensing it through spiritual power. So, if I use the chaos power later, will the clues be revealed? Xianxia didn't seem to notice Zuyun's absence, and continued, Didn't you notice that including you, there are a total of 15 people with middle-grade immortal roots, and none of them have been selected? In fact, now these people with low-grade immortal roots can only be used as patrols. In addition to the middle-grade immortal roots, they must also have amazing combat capabilities. Isn't that because it's not necessary? Zuyun was shocked again. He did not speak, but pretended to turn around inadvertently and looked at an immortal behind him who was holding a spiritual stone. As expected, the signed spiritual stone obtained by the low-grade immortal root was a low-grade spiritual stone. But he is a middle-grade spiritual stone. It seems that things may not be that simple. He couldn't help but clenched his fists, pondered for a moment, and made a decision in his heart. In the martial arts arena, the winner stays in the ring and the loser steps down. But the strange thing is that there are still some losers who will attract the thread again and then be selected into the remaining arenas. In this regard, Xianxia explained, this is to avoid the attribute restraint between the immortal roots. For example, if you look at the opponent over there, it is the scissors immortal root, but just now he had an opponent with the paper immortal root. This is still how to fight? So after losing, the city lord will give him another chance, and he will purposely choose other immortal roots for him to compete again. Zuyun was stunned, and his assessment of the city lord's strength went to a higher level. In addition to the mysterious space fairy root, there is also a delicate mind. After another half an hour, the competition between immortals with low-grade immortal roots finally ended. The city lord pulled out another thread, but this time it did not involve the participating immortals. Instead, he pulled Uncle Ju onto the stage. I have carved a new mark on the lottery stone. If you get the mark, you can ask if you are willing to join the royal city. Yes, city lord. Facing the city lord, Uncle Ju was very respectful. Zuyun had a sudden thought and asked, what kind of immortal root is Uncle Ninth? Mid-grade immortal root. Zuyun narrowed his eyes and said, then what magical powers does he have? Uncle Ninth has no fighting power, but you can tell whether a person is hostile with just one glance. This is why our Dian city dares to accept outsiders. Zuyun suddenly took a breath of cold air and understood why he needed to go through Uncle Ju. Come to think of it, these people still need to be investigated by Uncle Ju later. Don't be surprised, Xianxia pushed Zuyun and laughed softly, it will be your turn later. I don't know how many kinds of immortal roots there are in the immortal kingdom. You can compare them first. If so. If you can serve as deputy city guard, even if Darong King City knows that you killed the inspector of Duxian town, I'm afraid they won't dare to question you. Zuyun smiled bitterly, but saw golden light coming suddenly. He quickly concentrated, but saw that the golden light was actually rushing towards the spirit stone in his hand, not him. Immediately, spiritual power surged in the spirit stone and quickly enveloped him. When he came back to his senses, he was already in a boundless void. There is nothing underneath, but the steps are extremely solid. 14 other people also appeared beside him at the same time, which made him stunned. Is it possible that this choice of deputy city guard will lead to a melee? While he was stunned, a ball of golden light appeared in the void. The light kept changing and twisting, and finally turned into a human form. It was the city lord. You all have middle-grade immortal roots. Since you have come to our Dian King City, it means that you have recognized our Dian King City. Our Dian King City has always attached great importance to talents, so everyone, please try not to hide your clumsiness later and show your talents. Own means. As the city lord spoke, he glanced at everyone and added, in addition, this battle to choose the deputy city guard is mainly a melee, without any rules. However, no death blow is allowed. The person who begs for mercy is considered a loser and falls out of the ring. Besides, it's also a loss. Zuyun listened quietly, but he had a doubt in his heart. He had not paid attention to it before. How could he fall out of this void? Just as he was feeling strange, he saw that the immortal root between the city lord's forehead surged again, sending out thousands of threads. These silk threads crisscrossed like a field, forming a chessboard, and they were like chess pieces on the chessboard. The fight begins. As the city lord finished speaking, a more mysterious scene occurred. The city lord's figure turned into a phantom. It seemed that he was still standing in the same place, but in fact he was no longer in the martial arts arena. Boom! Zuyun only glanced at it, and a fairy closest to him punched him. There was a golden light on the fist, and the momentum was overwhelming, as if he was going to break this space. That's it? Although Zuyun didn't understand the pseudo-immortal power cultivated by these people, he had fought with Zhou Ye and Zhou Pao on the third week, and he could see the strength of this person to some extent. Very strong, but not a threat to him. Xiaorian. He directly used the extremely yang punch in the Chaos Fist and met it head-on. Bang! The two fists collided, and the immortal flew backwards, spitting blood, and crashed into the other two people who were entangled. Bang! Bang! Two more sounds. The two people actually had a tacit understanding, took a step back, and hit the flying person hard. Either a fist or a leg. I quit. The man probably didn't expect that he failed to sneak attack Zuyun, but was seriously injured. In a hurry, he quickly chose to surrender. I saw a golden light flash across the forehead of the city lord, and the man disappeared in an instant. Zuyun's eyes flashed, and he glanced at the two people over there, and quickly retreated a few steps to the back, retreating to the chessboard, that is, the edge of the ring. 15 people only took 14 people, just right to fight 2 by 2. Soon a burly man aimed at Zuyun, stomped his feet, and his body turned into a golden light, attacking his side. The sound of wind suddenly rose, and the momentum came before the man arrived. Zuyun narrowed his eyes, and this time he chose to step back. This man is coming with great force. I think he is an unusual immortal root. He relies on strength and cannot face the enemy head-on. Zuyun has rich combat experience. Facing this man, countless ways to deal with him flashed through his mind. Unfortunately, here, not only can he not kill him, but he can't use any means other than the Chaos Fist. Fortunately, the Changsheng does not use spiritual power. This step of his has hidden mysteries. Not only can he avoid the strong man's violent collision, but he can also accumulate strength. All things are born. Another punch hit the center of the golden light, which is between the strong man's waist and ribs. Puff. The big man was hit by the punch, and he spit out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew out of the chessboard. But he was amazingly powerful. When he was about to fall, he twisted his body forcibly, stepped half of his foot on the edge of the chessboard, slightly cushioned, bounced up again, and kicked Zuyun in the face. What a strong force! Zuyun's pupils shrank, and his feet moved quickly, dodging left and right, making it impossible for the big man to lock on Zuyun's exact position. Boy, don't think you can escape just by running. The big man was in mid-air, but he suddenly smashed his leg down. At this moment, golden light shone everywhere, and wherever the golden light reached, it was all pseudo-immortal power. It's also the leg immortal root. Zuyun was shocked. The golden light on the leg that was smashed down was extremely condensed. Although they were both leg immortal roots, they were also of the middle grade, but this man's combat power was much stronger than Xianxia. Invincible. This kick was like a heavy mountain pressing down on his head, and Zuyun immediately chose to retreat. He condensed the chaos power between his legs and quickly retreated to the back. Bang! The big man miscalculated after a leg missed. He thought that Zuyun's longevity secret was just a clever footwork, but he didn't expect that this retreat was completely beyond his expectations, and the speed of retreating straight away would be so fast. Under the great force, the chessboard also shook, and the other warriors who were fighting were even more shocked to look here. Zuyun condensed a fist, intending to knock the opponent off the stage while he was sticking to the chessboard, and it was difficult to dodge, but he never thought that several golden lights would attack from behind. It turned out that these people wanted to sneak attack Zuyun, and the less one person, the better. At this moment, they actually reached a consensus. This is the subtlety of the melee battle. No one is easy to deal with. Do you think I am so easy to sneak attack? Zuyun snorted coldly and took the Changshengju step again. At the same time, he could only temporarily give up attacking the big man. He took a step forward, twisted his waist, drew a semicircle on the ground with one leg, and punched the fastest immortal again. Wanzhenji. The surroundings suddenly became quiet, and the temperature dropped sharply. Bang. The low temperature met a golden light, but this time, it was Zuyun who flew backwards, and flew towards the big man. The big man had already stood up. Facing the flying Zuyun, he turned sideways with a grim smile, gathering strength on one leg and concentrating all his power on his leg. The golden light was dazzling, but Zuyun seemed to be completely unaware. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1294. Bang. The big man's leg kicked Zuyun's back without any surprise, and the fleshy feeling from the solace of his feet made him extremely convinced that Zuyun would be disabled this time even if he didn't die. Boy, die. Although I have a middle-grade leg immortal root, all my combat power lies in my legs. The big man laughed wildly, but soon, he stopped laughing. There was a tight feeling on the solace of his feet. When he took a closer look, it was Zuyun who had put his hand behind his back and pinched the solace of his feet. This kick did not hit Zuyun's back. When he was stunned, Zuyun had already used his strength to get up, turned over lightly, and kicked the big man instead. A golden light flashed across, and it turned out to be gold spiritual power. It turned out to be that the sword energy was released. Zuyun used the Wuji sword technique, using his feet as swords, and using the cover of the golden light of pseudo-immortal power, he released his sword energy. Call out. The sword energy passed through his chest, and the big man lost his strength. Zuyun pushed the big man out of the ring with a gentle push from his palm. In an instant, he fell out and disappeared. Huh. The immortals who rushed over were also shocked by this strange scene. They clearly saw Zuyun being beaten, so why did the immortal with the immortal legs lose? Such a strange scene, not only them, but also the city lord couldn't help but take another look here. He is the space immortal root and controls the overall situation of the arena, but he did not notice the sword energy hidden in the pseudo-immortal power. Zuyun landed gracefully, raised his fists, and said proudly, "Want to come together? Then come together." At this moment, he was so arrogant, with no one around him to interfere, and as soon as he finished speaking, he punched out two fists at the same time. Each one on the left and right held a chaos fist and blasted towards several people. Retreat. Zuyun didn't say that he was killed from the sea of blood from the corpse mountain, but he also had dealings with countless powerful people. At this time, his fists came out with such overwhelming momentum that these immortals fled in shock. Take advantage of his illness and kill him. Zuyun stepped on the secret of immortality, struck with his left hand and right fist one after another. Several immortals who could not escape were directly blasted out of the ring. Within a moment, only a woman was left hanging in the sky in the corner of the ring. Zuyun looked up and saw the woman smiling lightly and saying, "I can't beat you, but you should admit defeat." "Zuyunal, what's the point? You can't beat me, but you still want me to admit defeat? Could it be that you are from the main lineage of the Shui family's royal family? Don't believe it." The woman fell down gently, her skirt trailing to the ground. She lit up her jade feet and walked slowly towards Zuyun, as if she had no intention of taking action at all. "Why should I believe you? Zuyun raised his fist. He still had plenty of chaos power, and this woman didn't feel like a threat to him. You will believe me later, the woman chuckled, leaning her mouth against Zuyun's ear. Do you think you are a foreigner in the fairyland? Boom. Zuyun's mind was as if it was exploding, and his face was full of disbelief. He didn't know how he was discovered by this woman. Before he could ask the question, he saw that the woman had retracted her face and looked at him with a smile on her face, a look of amusement on her face. What do you mean? Zuyun's face was not pretty. He stared at the woman and said. It's not interesting, the woman said with a smile. This position of city guard is very important to me. If this immortal is given to the little girl will be very grateful. To be honest, Zuyun was not interested in this position. He only thought about how to go further when he knew that the city lord was the space immortal route. But now, this woman actually knows his identity. If she doesn't agree. Xuexian told him that Dian King City would not reject anyone coming from the city, but he never said that he would take in foreigners from the immortal city. Anyone who takes in a monk like him from the spiritual world will be punished by death. Zuyun restrained the murderous intent in his eyes. If he wanted this woman to die, he could easily achieve it. But the city lord has strictly ordered not to kill anyone. It seems that the only way to go is to admit defeat. He put down his fist feebly and walked directly to the edge of the ring without saying a word. I would like to thank Luo Yueheng for your great kindness from the immortal. The woman said softly, watching Zuyun jump off the ring. Light flashed, and Zuyun magically appeared beside Xuexian. Wish immortal, why do you? Xuexian didn't know about their conversation, and even the city lord couldn't know the content of their conversation, so Xuexian didn't understand. Even she could see that Zuyun was sure of winning. Why did he suddenly give up? Zuyun shook his head. There are many people here, so don't talk nonsense. Xuexian thought for a while and said, Zhu Xianxia, it is not bad to be a patrolman. After all, you only need to stay in Dian King City. I know, Zuyun said lightly, I'd better thank Inspector Xue. He knew that this had nothing to do with Xuexian, and there was no need for her to reveal her identity. This is a thankless job. Zhu Xianxia, I will go back tomorrow. May I invite you to my house for a meal today? I have already told my father that you saved my life in Duxian town. Xuexian's words are a bit exaggerated, but there is nothing wrong with them. After learning that the immortal kingdom could not ascend and encountered a tide of beasts and monsters, Zuyun could be considered as saving her. Zuyun nodded and did not refuse. At this time, the light dissipated, and the city lord and Luo Xiaoyu stood side by side, with smiles on their faces. Now, this city lord announces that the post of deputy city guard of Dian King City will be held by Luo Xiaoyu, the immortal. The other immortals with glowing sign stones in their hands can go to the registration immortal official to register for patrol guards. As soon as the voice fell, a golden light flashed across the city lord's forehead. When the light faded, the two had disappeared. Space immortal roots are indeed powerful. Zuyun couldn't help but feel a little envious, but he couldn't help but think of the teleportation array order brought back by the wooden incarnation. This is his last trump card. If he is really desperate in the fairyland, he can only try the token, but he is not completely sure. The teleportation array order is Huang Mingxing's teleportation array order, and this Qingping fairyland already belongs to another world, so it may not be feasible. Zuyun came here with curiosity at first, but after knowing the situation here, he put the idea aside. Master Zhu, let's go. Xue Liaison should be able to arrange a relaxed position for you. Although this place belongs to the south of the city, the patrol guards recruited also need to be assigned. Xuexian personally led him here, and after saying a few words, Xue Liaison arranged Zuyun to be in charge of the position called Yanhui Road. My home is there. You have nowhere to go for the time being, so you can live in my house. Xian only then said the purpose of taking him home for dinner. Thank you, Inspector Xue. Zuyun bowed his hands to thank him. This was the best result. The two left the city and walked towards Xian's home. Halfway through, a sharp whistle suddenly sounded from the direction of the city gate. Before the whistle fell, countless immortals rose from all over the street. Not only that, Zuyun had just received a token made of top-grade spirit stone from Liason, and it also lit up. A deep and majestic voice came from the spirit stone. All patrol guards, quickly gather at the south gate of the city. Zuyun did not act immediately, but looked at Xian, but saw a shocked face. This is the voice of the Immortal King. Immortal King? Dian Immortal King, Zuyun was also surprised. The Immortal King took the initiative to order them, the patrol guards. This is going to be a big deal. Yes, it's Dian Immortal King, Xian's eyes flashed with fear. It's going to be a big deal. Immortal Zhu, you quickly destroy this token. If Liason doesn't hand in the corresponding information, he won't be considered a deserter. Zuyun's heart was moved. Although he was free in Dian King City, once he entered the King City, he had to obey various orders, not to mention that this was the order of the Immortal King. If he didn't go to the south of the city to gather, it would be a capital crime. Zuyun said in a deep voice, "This will implicate you, Inspector Xue. You go home first, I'll go over and take a look." "Master Zhu," Xian said anxiously, "it's okay, Liason and I grew up together, we have a good relationship." The Immortal King ordered, "If it's not a monster attack, then it's a super large beast tide." "Don't worry," Zuyun said with a smile, "what's there to be afraid of with so many people? As long as I don't stand out, it's nothing at all. Besides, if the Immortal King can go out, there shouldn't be any danger." Zuyun still rejected Xian's kindness, which made Xian even more anxious. She stamped her feet and said, "Then I'll go to the south of the city with you to take a look." Zuyun stared for a long time before saying, "Okay, if the situation is not right, you leave quickly. I believe that with your leg immortal root, it will not be difficult to escape." When facing the monster, Xian also had the power to escape. Although he didn't know what happened in the south of the city, he wanted to protect himself. After the two reached a consensus, they did not choose to fly, but chose to walk in a low profile, but still slightly increased their speed. After an incense stick, they arrived at the south gate of the city. However, there was a crowd of people in front, all of whom were patrol guards and immortal officials wearing the standard protective clothes of Dian King City. Each person was faintly glowing with golden light, and it was obvious that they had controlled their immortal roots and pseudo-immortal power, with a tense momentum, as if facing a great enemy. "Look!" At this time, Xian suddenly pointed to the sky outside the city, where a huge golden flying boat was hovering, and on the keel of the flying boat, a man covered in golden light stood proudly with his hands behind his back, ignoring the crowd gathered under the city. "Brother Dian, why don't you dare to come out and see? Are you afraid that I will beat you up?" The voice came from afar and fell into everyone's ears with great arrogance. "This is the wrong Immortal King." Xian was shocked beyond words, and when he told the other party's identity, he trembled all over. "Immortal King Derong? Why is he here?" Zuyun couldn't believe it. Could it be that he killed and captured 3 immortal officials, which led to him chasing after him? Those 3 people were not strong at all. How could this happen? "I don't know." Xian forced himself to remain calm, staring at Zuyun and said, "Immortal Zhu, the situation has changed. The other side has even the Immortal King here. We will definitely fight. Give me the immortal order, and run for your life." After that, Xian reached into Zuyun's arms. "I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1295. Of course Zuyun would not let Shuexian succeed. Before she could fall into her arms, a strong hand held her. "You go home, I'll take a look and then talk." He didn't know why Immortal King Derong came to Dian City, but he was definitely inseparable from it, and Zuyun didn't want to involve Shuexian. Blessings to the Immortal. Shuexian stared at her beautiful eyes and her tone became a little more serious. "Listen to me, I also have the power to protect myself. If we really attack by force." Zuyun's eyes flashed and he said, "I am absolutely sure." Shuexian was silent for a moment, nodded, and said, "I'll go home first. No matter what happens next, you can find me at Yanhui Road." She knew she couldn't convince Zuyun, so she could only do the next best thing. Zuyun smiled and said, "I know, I will go to Yanhui Road to find you when the time comes." Turning his head, Zuyun continued to look at the flying boat, and quietly used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. Although he did not consume much in the ring, the remaining chaos power in his body was less than 50%. If there was a real fight, he would have to watch. "It depends. Brother Rongwang, I have come a long way from here, and I hope you will forgive me for not meeting you at a distance." At this time, a majestic and thick voice came from the city, and then a golden light flashed by, and another man with golden light floating in the air, 100 steps away from the great immortal king. The words were polite, but there was a hint of disdain. "King Xianxia," King Derong said coldly, "don't pretend to be confused because you understand. How could you not know why this king is looking for you?" Dian Immortal King narrowed his eyes, and then spread out one hand forward, and closed the other hand around his waist. There was a golden glow on his forehead. "In this case, let's fight." It was so straightforward that Zuyun was a little surprised. Do people at the level of Immortal King always fight at will? Does Immortal Zhu have any opinions? At this time, a pleasant voice suddenly came from beside him. Zuyun knew without looking that it was the newly appointed deputy city guard Luo Xiaoyu. "Zhu has no opinion. I wonder what deputy city guard Luo has." After all, Zuyun still stared at the two immortal kings. Immortal King Dian put on a posture, but Immortal King Dian was somewhat at a loss as to what to do. "I still think we have to hide first. If the Immortal King takes action with all his strength, this city may be destroyed. We little minions will only die if we stay here." Luo Xiaoyu's words made Zuyun turn around and saw her holding her arms and looking at him with a playful smile on her face. Zuyun narrowed his eyes and said, "Hide." Deputy City Guard Luo said that the city will be destroyed. "Where else can we hide? A city that has been inherited in the Qingping Immortal Kingdom for countless years. If there were no skills, the Shui family would have perished long ago." Luo Xiaoyu turned around and said lightly, "If Immortal Zhu can trust me, then come with me." Zuyun thought for a moment, and when he saw that Shuexian was no longer here, he decided to follow him. Not for anything else, just because Luo Xiaoyu knew that she was a monk in the spiritual world. Everyone's attention was in the air and they didn't notice them at all. Soon, they squeezed out of the crowd and stood on a street corner. "Deputy City Guard Luo, why don't you leave? There's no rush. Although they are very likely to start fighting, we can't leave hastily before we actually see them taking action. What if we run away instead of starting a fight and end up as deserters? Wouldn't we be asking for trouble? You know, the rules in Dian City are very strict." Zuyun agreed. Luo Xiaoyu was right. Seeing no one around, he lowered his voice and asked, "Why does Deputy City Guard Luo think that Zhu is a foreigner from the immortal world?" As he spoke, he also secretly gathered his spiritual power, just in case. Luo Xiaoyu glanced at his palm as if unintentionally, chuckled, and said, "Although fellow Taoist Zhu is in the stage of becoming a god, the spiritual power in his hand makes this little girl a little scared." As soon as these words came out, the chaos power in Zhu Yun's hand immediately dissipated. Are you also from the spirit world? I have to be surprised that it is extremely difficult for people in the spiritual world to survive in Qingping Fairy Kingdom. Yes and no. Luo Xiaoyu looked at the sky and said, my father is from the spirit world, but I inherited my mother's immortal roots. Zhu Yun was dumbfounded. He never expected it to be like this. After thinking about it for a moment, he asked, then how did you know that I am from the spirit world? Isn't this simple? Luo Xiaoyu chuckled softly and said, for people in the Qingping Immortal Kingdom, all pseudo-immortal powers must go through the immortal roots before they can be used. People in the spirit world don't have to. Even if you are smart and use a cover, you can't hide it from my eyes. After all, my father once taught me how to practice in the spiritual world, but it was a pity that when my mother died, he also died in love. Speaking of this, Luo Xiaoyu's expression also froze, and her interest became a little low. Feel sorry. Zhu Yun said softly. It doesn't matter, it's all in the past. Luo Xiaoyu cheered up, forced a smile, and said, I think you must have many problems in your heart. I can tell you, but not now. Zhu Yun's heart was like a mirror, and he said, tell me everything you know. But why did Deputy City Guard Luo come? Come and compete for this position. Luo Xiaoyu said, I have a high position and power. My father told me how to leave this fairyland, but something unexpected happened. This time the gate to the fairyland opened a little early, so I was not prepared. So, I will stay in Dian King City for 1,000 years, and I will look for a chance to leave next time. Does your father have any ideas? When he heard this, Zhu Yun couldn't help but feel shocked. Yes, but you need some high-grade spiritual stones. Although the spiritual stones are of little use in the fairyland, if you have a certain amount, you can use their spiritual power to blast out the fairy mist poison barrier when the country is wide open, so that you can escape. Destiny. The immortal mist poison barrier is the fog Zhu Yun encountered when he fell into the Kunlun Canyon. This mist will not damage the spiritual roots, but it will corrode the fairy roots. Just because Luo Xiaoyu mentioned it, an idea suddenly appeared in Zhu Yun's mind. The water of the Duanxian River also has such an effect. Does that mean he won't be affected by the fog? Can he break out of Kunlun directly? If the country's gates are not open, my Wu is just an array of heaven. I wish fellow Taoists don't think it's that simple. Luo Xiaoyu was very smart. When she saw Zhu Yun thinking deeply, she guessed what he was thinking. Is it the formation of heaven? As long as it is a formation, it can always be broken. He was very confident when he said this. If you can't break it by yourself, call Yesuanhu out of the universe and break it. If that doesn't work, use the divine eye technique. This is an immortal method. There's no way that even Qingpingzing can see through the heavenly ways, right? Is Zhu Taoist a formation master? At this time, Luo Xiaoyu was a little surprised, and she kept staring at Zhu Yun's face while speaking. Well, I know some formations, but I still focus on cultivating spiritual power. Zhu Yun no longer denied it. He knew that it would be useless to deny it anymore. Luo Xiaoyu had already seen that he was a monk in the spiritual world. That's not bad. Luo Xiaoyu seemed calm, but in fact, the surprise in her eyes could not escape Zhu Yun's eyes. I wish fellow Taoist, if I have the chance, I will take you on a mission and go out of here to see other countries. If you can break through the maze of heavenly Tao, maybe you won't have to wait until the country opens. Zhu Yun nodded and said, it's okay, but I'm not familiar with this place. I'll have to trouble Deputy City Guard Luo to help me then. If he could leave, Zhu Yun would certainly not refuse. Although the spiritual power here was abundant, Zhu Yun still had to be cautious and difficult. If he leaves, he can find a place in Tianweishan to practice all the time. By then he will probably have mastered the method of getting in and out, and he can come in any time he wants. It is not the day when the secret realm of Xianxia is opened, so it will naturally not arouse others' suspicion. However, I don't know what happened to the secret realm of Xianxia. I don't know if Zhu Feng is okay, if the Demon Moon sect has used the power of the Demon Moon to turn over, and I don't know if the tribulation monks have perished, or if they have found the immortal inheritance and left safely. Don't worry, the deputy city guard still has a lot of power. The king of Darong City has always adhered to the decision-making principle of using people without suspicion and employing people without suspicion, which is why it has developed so steadily. I have talked with the city lord, and it seems that the immortal kingdom is also going to change, so only then will Dian King City reorganize its personnel. Is the fairyland going to change? Zuyun was startled and remembered what Wan Potion had told him. The Qingping immortal kingdom was unable to ascend due to the incomplete way of heaven. Therefore, it had been preparing to connect with the spiritual world for 100,000 years. They wanted to open up the road to the spiritual world. And then borrowed Huang Mingxing's heavenly way to cause a catastrophe, and then ascended. This is not a secret among the high-level powers of the immortal kingdom, but ordinary immortals have no idea about it. Boom. At this time, the two immortal kings finally took action. On the side of immortal King Dian, he had thrown aside all the immortal officials on the boat and made the flying boat crash directly into immortal King Dian. And Dian immortal king was not to be outdone. His immortal root, to Zuyun's surprise, turned out to be dragon immortal root. A giant dragon of golden light roared and entangled the flying boat, opened its mouth and bit at the great immortal King Darong. The fight started. You take me to hide first. Zuyun had no time to watch, as the pseudo-immortal power in the air was already reaching the city. However, this Dian King city actually has a defensive formation, and the pseudo-immortal power collided with it, causing ripples. The formations of Qingping Immortal Kingdom are very different from those in the spirit world. Zuyun could not observe anything through the formations for a while. Even if he knew it, it would be useless. Okay, Luo Xiaoyu also became a little nervous and said to Zuyun, "You lock the qi machine on me and determine the position. No one is paying attention to us at this time. You can use teleport to follow me." After saying that, Luo Xiaoyu took out a jade talisman from her arms, put it on the fairy root emerging between her eyebrows, and muttered something in her mouth, as if it was some kind of magic spell. As soon as Zuyunchinj left a mark on Luo Xiaoyu had already disappeared. When Zuyun was about to follow, the green pods in the sky suddenly dispersed, and the golden light of the sun suddenly fell, falling on the golden dragon and the flying boat. Above. Chi. 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 The tragic burning sound came quickly. The two immortal kings were immediately injured, the golden dragons dispersed, and the flying boat shrank. Wait, don't you take this emperor seriously. Zuyun didn't dare to look directly at the Yang Huo, and he even didn't dare to teleport and follow Luo Xiaoyu to escape. Just because this person calls himself, the emperor. Who else could have such momentum besides immortal Emperor Qingping? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 1296. I've seen the immortal emperor. As the figure came through the sky, standing proudly under the sun fire, everyone knelt on the ground and shouted loudly. Not only the citizens of King Dian City, but also the immortals floating in the air. Extremely pious. The golden light coupled with the sun fire made it impossible for Zuyun to look directly, and he could only see an outline. I don't know what he was thinking, but he used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. At this sight, his expression also changed. A familiar scene appeared before his eyes. I saw a golden thread shooting out from the brows of all the kneeling immortals, heading towards the immortal emperor. It's very similar to the scene when he was in the secret realm of Ascension. This. Zuyun was shocked. Apart from this identical scene, the golden threads of these immortals seemed to be thicker than his. This is definitely a power, but how is this power used? Zuyun was puzzled and couldn't help but fell into deep thought. He had also borrowed the power of this golden light from nascent soul to become a god before, and he was completely passive. So, if you can take the initiative to master this power, will your own strength also make a qualitative leap? There is no doubt that the level of this power is definitely higher than the chaos force. In the fight with the immortals of Qingping Immortal Kingdom, he can also be sure that his chaotic power is not inferior to the pseudo-immortal power in this world. In this way, the level of this golden light power is definitely on the level of pseudo-immortal power. Could it be immortal power? Thinking of this, Zuyun's breathing couldn't help but become faster, and a desire for power also arose spontaneously. From his own personal experience, coupled with the scene of seeing the immortal emperor, he aroused desire in his heart, the desire to become stronger. However, he still maintains his sanity. If you want to fully master this power, you must return to the spirit world. After forcing himself to suppress this thought, Zuyun finally paid attention to the immortal emperor. Through the golden light, you can see the face of the immortal emperor. He looks like a very ordinary middle-aged man, but he is not angry or powerful. And the most important thing is that he can easily stand under the sun without being burned. With such magical power, no wonder he can achieve the position of immortal emperor. But the problem comes again. Why is Qingping in the sky under his control, and his immortal roots? The immortal kingdom is now at a critical juncture, and you are still fighting among yourself. Tell me, why? The immortal emperor's voice is very soft, but it rings in the ears, but like a big bell, it penetrates everyone's ears and goes straight into the mind. There is an unquestionable tone, and there is no feeling of wanting to lie. Zuyun secretly thought that if the immortal emperor spoke to him, he might not be able to resist. The immortal emperor's strength may still be above the tribulation stage. He shrunk and hid behind the corner of the room, and also removed the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. Although the consumption of spiritual power is very small, under this situation, some can be saved. Back to the immortal king, in the air, the wrong immortal king told the truth about his purpose of coming here, not daring to hide anything. A few days ago, something happened in the subordinates' jurisdiction. 3 subordinates sent out 3 people one after another, and 2 of them died. As soon as he disappeared, my subordinates suspected that Brother Dian was responsible, so they came here to investigate. The immortal emperor nodded slightly and turned to look at immortal King Dian. What immortal King Rong said, was it you who did it? The immortal emperor's Mingjian. Dian immortal king said loudly, my subordinates have been practicing in the city these days and have never left Dian King city. The immortal emperor nodded and said, this matter is a misunderstanding. You should go back and check it yourself. At this time when the country is opening, it may be something done by foreigners from the immortal kingdom after they come in, but not necessarily. He made a decision based on just one word. Zuyun knew that the immortal king would not be so hasty. Then, his strength was strong enough that neither of the 2 immortal kings would have the heart to lie. Immortal Emperor, I really don't have any clues at all. Apart from knowing that there were traces of fighting between monsters by the Duanxian River, there is no other information at all. Is it someone from the Immortal Kingdom or someone from outside the Immortal Kingdom? My subordinate, it's because of my inability to guess that it was Brother Dian who did it. Immortal King De Rong was a little embarrassed, but the Immortal Emperor raised his eyebrows and said, it seems that you want me to make a fortune for you. Subordinates don't dare to dream. That's all. The Immortal Emperor waved his hand and said, now that the Immortal Kingdom has reached a critical period, I have been recuperating and recuperating for so many years. It's not a big deal to make a fortune, so let's just do the math. After saying that, he stretched out his hand and a tortoise shell the size of an adult suddenly appeared. The back of the tortoise shell looks like armor, and there are many sharp spines growing around the edges. Zuyun had a bad thought in his mind, but he had already forgotten it. Immediately afterwards, the immortal emperor stretched his free hand into the void, took out a handful of metal coins made of unknown materials, and threw them into the tortoise shell. In an instant, the tortoise shell burst into golden light, and the immortal emperor closed his eyes. His whole body was emitting golden light, and he became one with the tortoise shell. After a moment, there was a clanking sound, and the coins scattered from the turtle shell's mouth. The immortal emperor's eyes narrowed and he quickly looked towards Zuyun. When their eyes met, Zuyun was horrified. The person who took action is in Dian King City. After the words fell, Durong Immortal King also looked up. With a wave of his hand, the flying boat behind him was like a sharp sword hitting the yellow dragon. Call out. Zuyun was horrified, and he didn't care about anything else. He teleported away immediately. Want to run? The immortal emperor's mouth flashed with disdain. He didn't take action, but looked at the immortal King Dian and said, "This emperor has always said that your method is not appropriate. It is good to have more people, but on the day when the country's gate is opened, you need to be more cautious. Help King Daong catch the people in your city, so as not to make the rift bigger." "Yes, immortal emperor." The immortal King Dian looked solemn. He also saw Zuyun. He didn't expect that it was someone in his city who did it. Although he didn't know Zuyun, he felt that the other party was carrying a unique sign stone of Dian Wangchang, the high-grade spirit stone that proved his identity. Zuyun didn't care too much and kept teleporting in the city, but the immortal King Dian was definitely not someone who could easily match him. Whenever he appeared, the flying boat would immediately chase him. The speed and reaction speed showed that these immortal kings were much higher than him in terms of the realm of the spiritual world cultivators. Before he could catch his breath, the immortal King Dian also caught up with him. "Brother Darong, I will lend you a helping hand." The immortal King Dian hated Zuyun to death, and hated the immortal officials in his city even more, who were actually allowed to sneak in by a foreigner from the immortal world and even became the patrol guards in the city. Fortunately, the immortal emperor had a fortune-telling, otherwise if the follow-up incident got out of hand, he would probably have to die to apologize. The voice of the immortal King Dian came from a giant golden dragon. Zuyun glanced back and saw that the speed was not slower than that of the flying boat. What should I do? He was extremely anxious. It would be difficult for him to deal with these two immortal kings joining forces, not to mention the immortal emperor who was standing in the air and watching the show calmly. While he kept teleporting, he racked his brains to think of a countermeasure. If I run out of the city, I will die, but if I stay in the city, I am afraid I will not survive, or, why not try the teleportation array order? Zuyun decided to take out the teleportation array order first, but as soon as he got the token, a flash of inspiration came to his mind. This array order looks almost the same as the fortune stone in his arms. And the fortune stone is made of high-grade spirit stone. There is no shortage of spirit stones in this world. Even the stone road in Duxian town is made of spirit stone, and this is even more so in Dian City. When he flashed, he looked at the ground and saw a street paved with high-grade spirit stones. These spirit stones are square and obviously cut. The most important thing is that the spirit stones are of the same size. So, Zuyun's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, and the bold idea slowly became clear. Give it a try. As long as I control the distance, these spirit stones can form a formation. He tried the self-destruct formation. In the Qingping Immortal Kingdom, the power was several times greater. In addition to the grade of the spirit stones themselves, the spiritual power in the air of the Qingping Immortal Kingdom was also a big reason. Although these spirit stones were arranged closely together, Zuyun could completely use the formation method to connect the spirit stones in the corresponding formation positions to form a formation. It's just that it's a bit difficult to ignore some of the spirit stones in the middle, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. With his mind, Zuyun decided to try the self-destruct formation first. If it's possible, maybe it's not impossible to turn an entire street or even the entire Dian King city into a Dozhuan Xinyi formation. The idea needs action to practice. This time, after Zuyun's figure reappeared, he no longer teleported, but used the thunder escape technique and fled straight to the ground. This sudden change of direction made the two chasing immortal kings unable to react and rushed to the front at once. Zuyun stepped on the solid spiritual stone and quickly formed the array formula in his hand. Swish! 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 10 steps in front of him, 5 spiritual stone bricks quickly gushed out spiritual power, and drove the 5 elements of spiritual power in the air and mixed them together. A spiritual power vortex appeared out of thin air, absorbing spiritual power frantically, and the spiritual power of various systems began to be agitated, and in the blink of an eye it became a turbulent flow. Boom! Even Zuyun didn't react. The self-destruct array formed by the spiritual stone bricks had exploded. A huge cloud of smoke rose from the array and rushed to the sky, and at the edge of the array, countless spiritual stones were also blown away. They were still in the middle of the flight, and were also shattered by the turbulent flow, and spiritual power surged out again, and then exploded again. This self-destruct array was like 100 cannons in the mortal world, continuous. Zuyun's face changed, and he quickly dodged to the back. At this time, the golden dragon and the flying boat had just turned around and chased after Zuyun, but they were caught in the turbulence. The dust and smoke engulfed them, and there were some wailing sounds. In the sky, the immortal emperor who saw the scene was also very surprised, and showed admiration to Zuyun. He turned out to be a formation master. This is something I didn't expect. He actually used spirit stones to generate such power. If I can use it, maybe I can break out of this fairy land this year. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 1297. Seeing that the entire street was about to be destroyed, Zuyun was also shocked. The spiritual power of this fairy country was really no joke. The self-destruction formation made no distinction between friend and foe, and was even completely out of Zuyun's control. After engulfing the two immortal kings, it even exploded towards Zuyun. The flying spirit stones were like fireworks, exploding into colorful colors. Nice to look at, but dangerous. Zuyun did not stop. Even if these two immortal kings would be killed, there was an immortal emperor above his head. We can't stay on this street anymore, let's try another one. Zuyun will not stop until the immortal emperor takes action. Maybe, even if the whole city is blown up, how can we still escape by fishing in troubled waters? As the streets were filled with dust and smoke, and the sound of explosions was heard endlessly, Zuyun also observed the immortal emperor floating in mid-air from time to time. He seemed to be fortune-telling just now, and I don't know what it has to do with Qin Tianji. Muttering secretly, Zuyun had already bombed several streets, but the immortal emperor still did not move. No matter where he hid, the immortal emperor's eyes would find him accurately, making him feel like a light on his back. It's interesting. This formation master's formation skills are quite high. It's interesting. It's really interesting. The corners of the immortal king's mouth curved. He didn't look like someone who would kill Zuyun at all. He even no longer paid attention to the situation of the two immortal kings at this time. An hour passed and the street was completely destroyed, but the houses on both sides of the street seemed to be protected by pseudo-immortal power and did not suffer any damage. This is why Zuyun dared to come out. At this time, the entire Dian city was shrouded in dust and smoke, and the turbulence caused by the explosions never stopped. But Zuyun could still feel the immortal emperor looking at him. No matter what, there is no chance to hide in the universe. Zuyun looked worried and simply stopped running. There really was no spirit stone to explode. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from under his feet. "Friend Zhu, why haven't you come here yet? It's Luo Xiaoyu." Zuyun was stunned, lowered his head and looked at his feet, and saw Luo Xiaoyu's head sticking out from the ground. Seeing her face full of doubts, he thought to himself, could it be that I made such a big fuss? You don't know at all? Hurry up and hide back, Zuyun said coldly, the immortal emperor has been staring at me. If you are discovered and considered to be my accomplice, then you will be in trouble. The immortal emperor is watching. Luo Xiaoyu exclaimed and said, did the immortal emperor tell fortunes? Yes, fortune telling. Zuyun urged, if you still want to survive, hide back. If the immortal emperor discovers your existence, he might take action against you. Now he has been watching in place, and I don't know why he didn't take action against me. He's got you, Luo Xiaoyu smiled bitterly and said, the immortal emperor has the hexagram immortal root, and even the Ji family practices hexagram. Zuyun was shocked. The fortune teller, and his surname was Ji, could it be? Seeing Zuyun's reaction, Luo Xiaoyu was not surprised at all, and said, Zhu Xianxia, you can only take care of yourself, but I am very safe underground. If nothing happens to you, you can come find me again. Luo Xiaoyu was not heartless, it was really a helpless act. It was true that she wanted to live, but attracting the attention of the immortal emperor, as Zuyun said, was indeed miserable. Luo Xiaoyu left just as quickly as she came, and only Zuyun was left here again. How about we try the formation order again? Qin Tianji said that he could not count Zuyun, but the immortal emperor could calculate that he was the one who attacked Darongqing city, which showed that his strength was definitely above the tribulation stage. Now that I'm being targeted, I think the only way to be safe is to escape back to the spirit world. Zuyun clenched the teleportation formation order tightly and was about to transfer the power of chaos into it when a familiar feeling suddenly came to his mind, and then, memories of the Duanxian River continued to enter his mind. The incarnation of water is back. Zuyun's body trembled, and the movements of his hands stopped. At the same time, the sounds of beast roars came from the distance. There are only 12 tribes of monsters in the Qingping Fairy Kingdom. The cries of these monsters are very familiar to Zuyun, but the beast roars coming from this time are extremely unfamiliar to him, so there is only one possibility, it is a monster. The avatar of water appears, and so does the magical beast. Does that mean that Xiao Green is preparing to attack the city with the magical beast? Zuyun hesitated for a moment, then quickly put the teleportation array order into his arms, then drew the breathing charm and the invisibility charm and pasted them on his forehead. He wants to bet. The gambling immortal emperor couldn't see him, so even if he wanted to determine his location, he still needed fortune telling. Moreover, the immortal emperor said before that there is no harm in calculating a fortune now. Does that mean that he will also consume a certain amount of money in fortune telling? It was with this thought in mind that Zuyun dared to take the gamble. At the same time, the immortal emperor also suddenly withdrew his gaze. When the beast's roar sounded, he shifted his attention. This made him not realize that Zuyun's figure and breath had completely disappeared. At this time, he frowned and looked into the distance. At such a height, a black tide of beasts in the distance is rushing towards here. The ground shook, and countless dust and smoke rose above the wasteland. Warcraft tide. Under his feet, countless immortal officials were puzzled. They did not fly, so naturally they could not see into the distance through the city wall. They could only judge the scale of the beast tide through the vibration of the ground, which was very large. This made them couldn't help but control their immortal roots, and for a while, golden light shone brightly above and below the city. Undoubtedly, this also gave a signal to the Warcraft. Brothers, the Immortals in Dian City are all ready, Let's kill them quickly. Xiaolu suddenly flew into the sky and roared at the monsters below. This scene fell in the eyes of the immortal emperor. What surprised him even more was that he saw Zuyun. That's right, the water incarnation is sitting on Xiaolu's dragon head. Realizing that the immortal emperor was looking at him, the water incarnation met his gaze without hesitation. Zuyun felt his presence, and he also connected with Zuyun's soul. Knowing Zuyun's situation, he asked Xiaolu to notify the warcraft to speed up the attack on the city. Roar! 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 The monsters all let out loud roars, catering to Xiaolu. Their speed suddenly became faster, and the vibration on the ground became stronger. The immortal emperor's face was extremely solemn. To deal with any immortal from the Qingping immortal kingdom, he can crush them with the best immortal roots, but against these magical beasts with completely different cultivation powers, he can only fight head-on with his strength. These magical beasts suddenly united. It seems that it was the strange green poisonous dragon. If we kill it, the danger of the magical beasts sieging the city may be solved. The immortal emperor did not tell fortunes, but judged the situation through his own judgment. He stretched out his hand and pointed it diagonally in the air. Woo! 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 In the sky, the green pods on top of the beast tide suddenly dispersed. The sun fire shot straight down without any obstruction, just like pulling away the clouds to see the sun. Roar! The unsuspecting monsters were immediately burned by the sun fire and let out huge roars. Seeing this, Xiaolu's eyes suddenly narrowed. The water incarnation sneered, stretched out his hands, and drew the magic talisman at the same time. A talisman that he has learned but has never used. As early as when he was preparing for the warcraft attack on the city, he had thought of the sun shielding talisman. The spiritual talisman takes shape and then rushes into the sky. The dark clouds came from nowhere and blocked the sun fire again. The commotion of the warcraft stopped, but the anger in their eyes was even worse, looking at the immortal emperor floating above the city wall from a distance. Behind the beast tide, several monsters suddenly fluttered their wings and took off. The spread wings were several feet wide. Call out! With the sound of breaking through the air, they actually took the lead to kill the immortal emperor. Court death. When the immortal emperor saw that his magical power was destroyed by the talisman transformed from water, and when he saw that these monsters dared to attack him, he shouted loudly. The light of the immortal root on his forehead suddenly lit up, and at the same time, both queens quickly pinched the magic formula. Leave. A large golden character suddenly appeared in front of him, and then flew towards those monsters. The water incarnation stared. This was actually similar to the method used by the ancestor of the Lin family. However, he has learned through his true body that the immortal emperor's immortal root is related to hexagrams. Although it is mysterious, his combat power is not as strong as his realm. Xiaolu, let's go out. With the thought of turning his body into water, Xiaolu immediately flew away and joined those monsters. Break it for me. He once again stretched out his finger as a pen and wrote a heavenly talisman. In the air, water spiritual power quickly gathered towards his fingers, and the broken characters took shape, which turned out to be a dark blue font. The Lin family's heavenly talisman. When he saw this word, the immortal emperor also shrank his pupils and couldn't believe it. Boom! The two characters Li and Po suddenly collided together. Li was fire, but Po was drawn by the power of water. Under such circumstances, they are evenly matched. The firelight and the water column kept intertwining, and their power weakened and decreased, and finally fell into silence. Seeing that the immortal emperor seemed to be shocked by his own methods, Water Avatar took the opportunity to take action again and drew the word trap. The word trapped quickly took shape, still condensed from water spiritual power, and flew towards the immortal emperor. At this time, Zuyun also moved. He also didn't expect that the Lin family's Tianfu could restrain his Gua immortal root, and without any hesitation, he used his chaos power to draw the word Zhen. During the days when he was trapped in the Tianfu space, Zuyun was suppressed by countless purgatory mountains. In addition to breaking through these mountains, he also understood the great ways of many Tianfu. This town is a town of repression. The word Zhen flew away, Zuyun turned around and drew another Zhen. The town is like a 9-story tower, and the pressure is like a huge mountain. This immortal emperor is a member of the Ji family. If possible, Zuyun would like to find out some information from him. Of course, if these methods can suppress the immortal emperor, then naturally they can also take his life. Being attacked from both sides, the immortal emperor's expression also changed drastically. Knowing that his immortal roots were restrained, he stopped taking action. Instead, he quickly jumped into the air and shouted an order. All immortal officials obey the order and stop these flying words for my emperor. After the words fell, those immortal officials who had not moved yet, brought by the immortal King Durong, showed off their magical powers. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1298. The immortal emperor stepped on the golden light and quickly rose to meet the yang fire. And those immortal officials, each showing their immortal roots, blasted towards the two words. The golden light lingered, and the two words Zhen and Ya were shattered respectively, making a loud rumbling sound. In addition, several people blasted towards the word Qian drawn by the water incarnation. The word Qian, which was like a water prison, was also quickly defeated. Zuyun and the water incarnation changed their faces at the same time. Although they didn't know what they were restricted by, they also felt the strength displayed by these immortal officials. Damn it, fight! Zuyun's face condensed, looking at the immortal emperor flying towards the yang fire, his mind formed a connection with the water incarnation, and immediately punched out. Qinglong fist. At the same time, the water incarnation began to draw talismans. Since this immortal emperor can control the activities of Qingping, he will block these yang fires first. Xiaolu, charge. The water incarnation kept drawing words and words in the middle of his hand, and even attracted the water spirit power in the air. Aqua blue sunshade talismans rose into the sky. Dark clouds suddenly came, and then heavy rain fell, as if the sky was broken and floods poured down. The immortal emperor's face was extremely solemn. Even if he could control Qingping and let the yang fire shine down, he couldn't let the yang fire break through these dark clouds. Without the means of yang fire, he couldn't hurt Zuyun just by fortune telling. You, come and protect me. He shouted in a deep voice, asking the immortal officials to follow him. But the problem is that in the Qingping immortal kingdom, the immortals who can fly, no matter how high their realm is, can't fly as long as the spiritual world cultivators. It seems that they have cultivated pseudo-immortal power, but have lost more ways to use it. Except for some immortal officials who have the ability to ascend, the rest of the immortal officials can only sigh in the air, which also leads to the fact that there are only a few immortal officials who can protect the immortal emperor. Zuyun was happy in his heart. It would be easier to deal with if there are fewer people. Looking at the roaring azure dragon fist, he turned and threw another punch. White tiger fist. Roar. A tiger roared, and a giant white tiger rushed out of the fist. Its body quickly grew larger, and chased after azure dragon. And their target was the immortal emperor. These two punches actually have the power of ancient beasts. This cultivator is only in the spiritualization stage. Why does he have a fist technique that can intimidate this emperor? His face was extremely ugly. Not to mention dealing with it, he didn't even have a chance to calculate Zuyun's life experience. He could only use his position as the immortal emperor to order those immortal officials to stop him. But these immortal officials were not stupid. With their strength, they could naturally feel the power of these two punches. Although they cultivated pseudo-immortal power at a higher level than spiritual power, they also had disadvantages. There was no mutual generation and mutual restraint between the attributes, but it would be suppressed by the level of the technique. Zuyun's chaotic power was also higher than the level of spiritual power, and was equivalent to being at the same level as pseudo-immortal power. However, he used this power to control it with immortal methods, so his level was naturally higher than those immortal officials. The four-direction divine beast fist was a fist method based on the laws of the immortal world, and they felt suppressed from it. Ang. Roar. Several immortal officials were instantly swallowed by the azure dragon and the white tiger. At the same time, the water incarnation had also rushed to the front and quickly merged into Zuyun's body. Suddenly, Zuyun's soul and the chaotic power in his body were strengthened again. Xiaolu, charge. Zuyun didn't know why he was afraid of the immortal emperor, but he always followed the principle of taking his life while he was alive. Although he was somewhat interested in the identity of the immortal emperor. But if he wanted to know more information, he had to capture him alive first. Yes, master. Xiaolu's eyes were shining, and his physical fitness was extremely strong. After recovering in the broken immortal river, he fought with those monsters and finally won, so he commanded the beasts and found the water incarnation hiding in one place. Through the conversation with the water incarnation, he knew the situation that Zuyun might face, so he came to Dian King City. Damn it! The immortal emperor knew that he was restrained in all aspects, and he knew Zuyun's plan. He knew that he could only lose if he stayed, so he continued to fly to the sky, wanting to escape from here. But the pseudo-immortal power he used would certainly be used less and less in his body. In contrast, Zuyun stepped on Xiaolu's back. Seeing the other party escape, he sat cross-legged and began to refine his energy. The spiritual power of Qingping Immortal Kingdom is extremely abundant. Zuyun only operated it slightly, and a spiritual power vortex was formed above his head. A stream of spiritual power was madly injected into his body, filling his 28 lotus hearts. He can also use Suzaku Fist and Suanwu Fist, but he will not let himself fall into a situation where he can't use it. At this time, he can recover as much as he can. The speed of the immortal emperor is very fast, like golden light, but Xiaolu is not poisonous. The spiritual power of this world is full of desire, and his real dragon body can convert all the power. This is the terrifying part of the divine beast. Even if you don't practice, you can slowly become stronger. Where can he fly to once his power is used up? Master, you just practice slowly. Xiaolu, who became the king of the magic beast, was also extremely arrogant at this time, and the nature of the real dragon was also revealed. But who would have thought that the immortal emperor would make another surprise move while flying all the way? He suddenly stretched out his hand and gently waved at the sky. A piece of duckweed flew towards him, like a flying carpet, and landed at the feet of the immortal emperor. Master, that guy is practicing on the green duckweed. Seeing this scene, Xiaolu hurriedly reminded him. Zuyun opened his eyes, pondered for a moment, and said, chase him first. If we can't catch up, we can only let him go. The immortal emperor's speed is very fast, not slower than Xiaolu. After Zuyun finished speaking, he closed his eyes again. He didn't have much spiritual power. Even if he caught up, it would be useless if he couldn't seriously injure the immortal emperor in one breath. He didn't do anything without confidence. Xiaolu led Zuyun to chase, and the monsters below were like a group of dragons without a leader. After a roar, they simply retreated slowly. They wanted to chase, but they couldn't catch up with Xiaolu. The immortal emperor asked Qingping to fly straight ahead. He looked back and saw Zuyun closing his eyes to refine his qi. How could he not guess Zuyun's plan? Although your skills can restrain this emperor, and you can also use the heavenly talisman, don't underestimate this emperor. The immortal emperor glanced at Zuyun, took out the tortoise shell from his arms, and took out the coins with his other hand. Voila! Golden light flashed, and the immortal emperor poured the coins on Qingping. His face changed. This boy, is actually the son of destiny of Qingping Immortal Kingdom? Is Qingping Immortal Kingdom going to change its fate? The Immortal Emperor breathed rapidly, and couldn't help but look back, and looked at Zuyun, who closed his eyes again, a little unbelievable. They didn't fight at all, and he was not even his opponent. The reason why the other party didn't kill him was that he had other thoughts, and the Immortal Emperor knew it very well. But this divination said that he was the son of destiny, which was too incredible. This calculation is too vague, otherwise, change the calculation method. The Immortal Emperor pondered for a moment, picked up the coins again, and put them into the tortoise shell one by one. Just now he calculated what kind of person Zuyun would become in the Immortal Kingdom. It was calculated, but the answer was too vague. This time, he wanted to calculate why Zuyun came to Qingping Immortal Kingdom. But when the coins fell on Qingping again, the Immortal Emperor was stunned. Mistakenly entered the Immortal Kingdom. This was a possibility that he could not think of at all. Calculate again, calculate why he ascended to the Immortal Secret Realm. The Immortal Emperor gritted his teeth, and every calculation consumed a lot of his pseudo-immortal power. You know, Zuyun was a person who would even vomit blood when Qin Tianji calculated, which means that his strength was strong enough. In these years, he would not calculate if he could. He continued to throw coins into the tortoise shell, took several deep breaths in succession, and after his mind became calm, he closed his eyes. Concentrate and calm down, and take out the tortoise shell. After a burst of rustling, he poured the coins on Qingping. But the Immortal Emperor did not dare to open his eyes, but remained silent for a long time before slowly opening them. Suddenly, his expression became extremely wonderful. It turned out that someone from my Ji family asked him to go to the Ascension Secret Realm. He opened his mouth. Could it be Ji Tianqing who accidentally disappeared in Kunlun Mountain 10,000 years ago? After a long time, he suddenly stood up, asked Qingping to stop, turned around and shouted to Zuyun, Daiyu, I have something to talk to you about. Xiao Lu saw that the other party stopped running, and also stopped, keeping a certain distance from the Immortal Emperor. And Zuyun also opened his eyes and looked at the Immortal Emperor with a calm face. Daiyu, do you know Ji Tianqing, the descendant of my Ji family? The Immortal Emperor got straight to the point. He knew that Zuyun's stopping did not mean that he would have the patience to listen to his slow explanation. Qin Tianji. Zuyun was startled, but after looking at the tortoise shell on Qingping, he immediately understood and said, Did you calculate it? Yes, everyone in my Ji family has the roots of Guoxian, so they can calculate the secrets of heaven. The Immortal Emperor did not deny it, and said, This Emperor calculated that you have intersections with people from the Ji family, and are related to the Ascension Secret Realm, so I boldly guess that fellow deist has mistakenly entered this fairy land. Zuyun sneered, Even if you know each other, so what? Your Qingping fairyland is doing things against the will of heaven, and you are torturing the spiritual world cultivators with cruel means. Even if I accidentally entered the fairyland, so what? Didn't those cultivators also accidentally enter it? Fellow deist, you don't know. The Immortal Emperor looked a little nervous. Since Zuyun asked this, he must know something, and hurriedly explained, the heavenly way of the fairyland is incomplete, and we have not been able to ascend for 100,000 years. We can only try our best to connect Qingping fairyland with the spirit world. The fairy mist will damage the fairy roots. Once the fairy roots are destroyed, our lifespan will be gone. So we can only borrow the flesh of the cultivators in the spirit world. Shut up. Zuyun shouted coldly, even if the flesh of the cultivators in the spirit world can help you escape, there is no need to extract their spiritual roots to refine the spirit beads. How can you do such a cruel thing? The Immortal Emperor looked incredible and said, Who said we extracted the spiritual roots of the cultivators? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1299. You don't have one. Zuyun asked back, do you think that I just came to your fairyland and don't know anything? The spiritual beads that fellow Taoist mentioned are these beads. The immortal emperor stretched out his hand forward, and many beads of various colors appeared out of thin air. Yes, these are the spirit beads. Fellow Taoist, you really misunderstood. Did you get some gossip? The immortal emperor showed a bitter look on his face and said, these beads are the currency of our immortal kingdom. They are all mined from the mineral veins. Although every 1,000 years, there will be spiritual monks who accidentally enter the immortal kingdom, but no matter how many there are, it will not be enough. There is no way it could be enough to become currency. There is plenty of spiritual power in Qingping Fairy Kingdom, and we don't know how to use this spiritual power. Even the spiritual stones are used to pave roads and build houses. These spiritual beads cannot be forged. That's why. Zuyun frowned. This news was told to him by Wan Potion, and Wan Potion got the news from the Shiji immortal official of the immortal kingdom. Could it be that he was lying to me? But Wan Potion, what's the reason for lying to me? Fellow Taoist, if you don't believe it, you can come with me to the immortal kingdom. Since you came to the Qingping immortal kingdom under the guidance of Ji Tianqing, you can be considered to be destined to our Ji family. I've been to your Ji's house, can I still come out? I don't have the courage. Zuyun was on guard against the immortal emperor, so it was naturally impossible for him to completely trust him. Fellow Taoist, I didn't kill any of the monks who accidentally entered this place. They were all fed with delicious food and drink. However, they were indeed imprisoned until their lifespan was almost over before they went to experiment on how to break out of the fairyland. Go. Don't be afraid of fellow Taoist jokes. When the immortal kingdom was severely damaged by an outside power, he also stopped talking. We don't dare to do that kind of thing. The immortal emperor knew that Zuyun must have misunderstood, so he had no choice but to explain. Of course, he did not expect Zuyun to believe him. No one killed them. So, in your fairy kingdom, there are many high-level monks. Zuyun's expression tightened. His ability to suppress the immortal emperor must have something to do with the immortal technique he practiced. But other spiritual monks were competing for realm, and he didn't have much of an advantage. It's not too many. There are 2 people in the tribulation stage, 3 people in the Mahayana stage, and more than 10 people in the integration stage. There are also quite a few people in the void refining stage and the God transformation stage. In the spiritual world, this is no worse than any major section. Zuyun was secretly frightened, and it was even more impossible for him to go to the imperial city with the immortal emperor, so he said, I don't believe what you say, you'd better tell me, how do you plan to break through the immortal mist? And what does the immortal mist have to do with the broken immortal river? The Duanxian River flows in from outside the immortal kingdom. This river water is actually the immortal mist and rain, and then flows into the Duanxian River. It is also because of this that the immortal kingdom has never been able to clean up those monsters. By the way, fellow Taoist, the sitting real dragon can actually command the monsters. I have an uninvited request. Can you tell these monsters to stop being monsters? The fairy kingdom can live in peace with the monsters, as long as they don't leave the Duanxian River. Why, this monster will hurt you too. Do you know the origin of the magical beast? Zuyun raised his eyebrows and said, descendants of extraterrestrial demons. The immortal emperor's expression changed, and he said in shock, how did fellow Taoist learn such secret news? You don't have to worry about where I got it from, just tell me, are there any other monsters you're afraid of among these monsters? Of course, yes, the immortal emperor said with a bitter smile, the extraterrestrial demons come from outside the immortal realm and want to invade the immortal realm. As for the purpose, I don't know. If Qingping's star is not destroyed, I will also. He is just a small head of the G family in Qingping's star. However, among this fragment of the world, I am the strongest and the only top immortal root, so I can suppress all the immortals. To put it far, we, the immortals of Qingping's star, can be said to have grown up from the slaughter of the demons from outside the territory, and we know them very well. And these monsters are the offspring of the combination of the demons from the outside world and the monster beasts, because half of them are demons. The beast bloodline is subject to some restrictions. Otherwise, this incomplete heavenly way cannot suppress their growth. Of course, the other half of the bloodline allows them to maintain the inheritance of the demon. Our power cannot completely suppress them. Only by filling in human lives? Zuyun narrowed his eyes and asked again, what about the beast tide? There are only 12 kinds of monsters in the Qingping fairy kingdom. We call them the destiny monsters. These are sent by the demon master to Qingping to help us resist the demons outside the territory. They have existed for a long time and have been living in Qingping. On the star. After the fragments of Qingping immortal kingdom collapsed, some monsters came with them, and the beast tide was a way for them to express their dissatisfaction with us immortal people. Why are you dissatisfied? Because the way of heaven is incomplete, their cultivation realm is limited, and it is impossible for them to reach the demon saint realm, let alone ascend to become a demon immortal. Zuyun frowned. What happened to Huang Xingxing's 12 demon clans? But obviously, even if you ask the immortal emperor, you will definitely not know, so it is better not to ask. However, he believed the reason for the beast tide explained by the immortal emperor. No matter human or demon, once you practice cultivation, you will definitely move to a higher level. The longevity of the demon clan is also very long, but it is far less hopeless than these immortal people. At least, the immortals can continue to practice, but they will be stuck in the demon king realm. Without the demon tribulation, they cannot break through the demon saint, which will keep them in a situation where there is no strong person. If the people from Qingping Fairy Kingdom wanted to destroy them, it would be extremely easy. However, judging from the current situation, it seems that they will not hunt monsters for no reason. They will only resist the tide of monsters when they come. In addition, Zuyun also obtained a very important piece of information, which was the Destiny Monster clan mentioned by the Immortal Emperor. In the spirit world, the 12 tribes did have the power of destiny, and he had a totem pole, which also added some laws to the world of the universe. Some small lives suddenly appeared in the world of the universe, which also started after the 12 totem poles were gathered together. Fellow Taoist, what else do you want to ask? I treat you sincerely and tell you everything you know. The Immortal Emperor's voice sounded again. Zuyun looked at it, thought for a moment, and then said, Ji Tianqing did ask me to go to the secret land of Xianxia, but I came out not long after I went to the secret land of Xianxia, and accidentally entered it by mistake. There is nothing to hide in the immortal kingdom, but what I want to know is whether there is any relationship between the Qingping immortal kingdom and the Xianxian secret realm. Yes and no. The immortal emperor said, with the opening of the immortal secret realm, immortal power will come to the world, which will connect the immortal kingdom to the outside world. Therefore, monks can enter the immortal kingdom from the fairy mountains abroad. However, those immortal fogs will hurt our immortal roots have not found a way yet, so we cannot go out. In addition, there is the secret realm of Xianxian, which originally belonged to Qingping Star. It is said that it was once a secret realm opened by the immortal emperor. No one has ever found the immortal emperor's inheritance. The immortal emperor's secret realm. Zuyun suddenly looked stern. Yes, it is the immortal emperor's secret realm. There once was an immortal emperor who came to our Qingping to collect heavenly fire. In order to prevent the heavenly fire from escaping, he specially carved a space with his supreme magical power. By the way, since Taoist friends have been to Shangping in the fairy secret realm, you must know that there are 2 blood moons in the secret realm, right?
Yes, indeed.
Zuyun cheered up and said seriously. The heavenly fire absorbed the yang fire of the immortal kingdom and became extremely powerful. The immortal emperor used his supreme magical power to separate the day and night of Qingping star, forming 2 independent spaces. The secret realm of the Ascension Immortal is night, and as for the 2 rounds of blood, the moon is said to be a supreme magical weapon, but no one has ever taken it off.
What did you say?
Those 2 moons are immortal weapons.
Zuyun was shocked.
He had seen the power of the blood moon before, and it was precisely because of the power of the blood moon that he wanted to leave the Ascension secret realm.
So, what happened to the Demon Moon sect?
The immortal emperor did not mention the Demon Moon sect in his words, but instead called it Blood Moon.
That's what the people in Qingping Immortal Kingdom say.
The secret realm of immortality is opened every 1,000 years. All the monks tried their best to activate the power of the Blood Moon. There was once a group of monks who spent countless time to build a shocking formation, but it can only use the power of the Blood Moon, but it cannot remove the Blood Moon.
Zuyun was speechless, thinking about Mou sect, but he mentioned it.
He also remembered that the people of the Demon Moon sect had crescent-shaped tumors on their foreheads, which were very similar to immortal roots. It may be because the spiritual world is not nourished by pseudo-immortal power that their immortal roots are transformed. After pondering for a moment, Zuyun chose to temporarily believe in the immortal emperor, and then said, "Then you want the formation master to break through the immortal mist?"
"Yes," the immortal emperor said without hesitation, "in my plan, I am to find the formation master, and then use the spiritual power of other monks, supplemented by endless spiritual stones, to spread the mist formation, and then leave from the immortal mountain. As long as we can be in a world with complete heaven, we will definitely be able to ascend. Fellow Taoist, do you know what will happen to us immortals if we don't ascend?"
Zuyun frowned and said, "Don't you immortals have endless longevity?"
"Yes, lifespan is endless, but the problem is that the power in the body will slowly accumulate. If we do not ascend to the immortal world, one day, the body will not be able to withstand the power, and then it will self-destruct. This is why, my emperor, and the reason why those immortal kings are not too strong."
Thinking of the helpless scene with Zuyun, the immortal emperor also looked embarrassed. He came here with the fragments of Qingping star 100,000 years ago. But 100,000 years later, the reason why he couldn't defeat Zuyun, even though he had immortal magic, had a lot to do with the lack of immortal power in his body.
Don't dare to practice. The faster you practice, the faster you will die. No one wants to die. Unless, you can ascend.
Zuyun also understood. No wonder no one in Qingping Immortal Kingdom ever mentioned realm matters. After pondering for a moment, Zuyun said, "If I can set up a large formation, can I connect the 2 worlds before the country's gate is opened?"
I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1300. This, I am only proficient in hexagrams, not formations.
The immortal emperor thought for a moment and was a little unsure.
Zuyun raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Then can't you do the math?"
"I have counted 4 times today.
I cannot count any more, otherwise my life may be in danger."
The immortal emperor's answer surprised Zuyun, and asked, "Does your immortal root still have a limit on the number of times it can be used?"
"What is being calculated is fate, it is fate. As the saying goes, the secrets of heaven cannot be revealed, and you, fellow Taoist, seem to be protected by a kind of power, which makes it extremely difficult for me to calculate. It is estimated that other people in the Ji family may not be able to calculate you."
Zuyun was dumbfounded. He remembered that Qin Tianji told him that he could not be counted. At that time, Zuyun guessed that it was because of his relationship with the fairy world. Whether it's the skills he cultivates or the glazed mirror of the universe he possesses. This matter has not been verified, but the immortal emperor can make some calculations. After pondering for a moment, Zuyun said, since you can't calculate whether my formation can break through the fairy mist, can you calculate when you can leave the fairy land? I can't blame myself, the immortal emperor said with a bitter smile, the doctor doesn't know it, and the divinator doesn't know it. However, I have calculated that the immortal kingdom will be connected to the outside world within 1,000 years. Zuyun turned around, looked into the distance, and said, I can't stay here for 1,000 years, so I want to set up the formation as soon as possible. I wonder if the immortal emperor can provide help. That's natural. I just hope that after my fellow Taoist leaves the immortal kingdom, he can help us in the immortal kingdom think of a solution. Zuyun smiled and said, you are cultivating immortal roots, and your strength is mysterious. If you go to the spirit world and want to kill the creatures in the spirit world, wouldn't I become a sinner in the spirit world? Absolutely impossible, the immortal emperor said loudly, when Qingping Star was not destroyed, we were the frontline world star of the human race against the extraterrestrial demons. How could we massacre other monks? Secondly, after the immortal kingdom and the spiritual world are connected, there is no immortal power there. If we want to continue practicing, we can only stay in the fairy land. Those who leave the fairy land just want to ascend to the fairy land through the heavenly way of the spiritual world, so it is impossible to stay in the spiritual world. Zuyun was stunned for a moment. It seemed that this was the truth. The immortal kingdom could not ascend. There were already too many immortals here waiting to die. If you want to live a truly endless life, the only way is to ascend. Even if they look down on the monks in the spiritual world, they will not trouble them for no reason. The spiritual monks would not take the initiative to die. Thinking of this, Zuyun nodded and chose to believe in the immortal emperor. Seeing this, the immortal emperor was overjoyed and said again, fellow Taoist, please think about it. There are countless spiritual stones and spiritual beads here. If you, Taoist, can connect the two worlds, for the monks in the spiritual world, isn't it a blessed place? This is also a great benefit to the spirit world. The more cultivation resources they have, the faster they will practice, and maybe the level of this world star will be promoted as a result. World star, can it still be upgraded? Zuyun didn't expect this problem. Of course, the immortal emperor said, there are 4 immortal realms in the immortal world, but there is also a saying that it is the 5 immortal realms. Each world star is under the jurisdiction of one immortal emperor. If there are too many ascended immortals, it will be difficult for the immortal emperor. It is also an increase in strength, and the most obvious manifestation is the increase in some resources. In fact, our Qingping star is promoted to a heaven-level world star through our resistance to the extraterrestrial demons. It's just a pity that the immortals came down to help in the battle. Zuyun understood that it was easy to understand if he regarded the immortal world as the spiritual world and the immortal realm as the sect. There are fights between sects for resources. So is it also for resources when the extraterrestrial demons invade the fairy land? However, I am afraid that not many people in the entire spiritual world know about these things. They continued to practice hard in order to attain enlightenment and ascend to immortality, but in the end, they just ended up in a bigger sect. But there is no turning back in cultivating immortality. Who can let go of that obsession and return to the mortal world to spend the rest of his life? In the end, they will definitely become like the fairy people of the fairy land, lose their enthusiasm for life, and finally become like a walking corpse. Thank you, Immortal Emperor, for clarifying my doubts. Zuyun cupped his hand, and his view of Immortal Emperor changed slightly. Of course, he would not completely believe the Immortal Emperor's words, and he did not care too much. He still said that this was for Zuyun. Too far away. Withdrawing his hand, Zuyun continued, does the Immortal Emperor know the Jidan sect? Jidan sect. The Immortal Emperor's expression tightened and he said, How did you know about this sect? Zuyun did not answer directly, but asked instead, is there a Jidan sect in the Immortal Kingdom? No, no, the Immortal Emperor shook his head and said with a stern expression, but on Qingping Star, this Ji alchemy sect is an extremely evil sect. They go to any lengths to make alchemy. They use people to make it, and they use demon refining, even using extraterrestrial demons to refine it. If you put aside the good and evil, they do have extremely terrifying background in alchemy, but they are obsessed with ascending through alchemy, so they have long been despised by everyone in Qingping Star. Zhang Men. Speaking of this, the Immortal Emperor suddenly looked at Zuyun and said in shock, is there someone from the Jidan sect outside the Immortal Kingdom? Zuyun looked solemn and nodded slowly. He seemed to understand somewhat why Qin Tianchun became the guest elder of Jidan sect. Maybe he was taking advantage of Qin Tianji, but why did he later be kicked out of Jidan sect? He couldn't understand this. But remembering that Jidan sect used Yanhun powder to secretly control the entire Bailian sect, and hoped to make a difference in the secret realm of Xianxia, maybe they also have an ulterior secret. Before, he wanted Zuyun to set up a mountain protecting formation for Jidan section. The apparent reason was to prevent young people like Yuxiao from sneaking into it and stealing their resources and elixirs. At this time, it seems that maybe this is not the case. The Immortal Emperor said that the two blood moons in the immortal secret realm were actually immortal weapons. So, everything the Jidan sect did was for the immortal weapons. He frowned and connected these things together one by one. The Jidan sect is the sect of Qingping Star. They have Yan Hunsen to control the monks, and then they enter the Ascension secret realm for the Blood Moon immortal artifact. Another point, if all the elixirs produced by Jidan sect contain Yan Hunsen, how much quantity is needed? As far as Zuyun knows, there are not many Yan Hunsen in either the mortal world or the spiritual world. So is there a possibility that there is an unknown secret passage in Qingping Fairy Kingdom? Thinking of this, Zuyun suddenly looked at the Immortal Emperor and said coldly, Immortal Emperor, why did the Immortal Kingdom collect smoke soul powder? It's just for destruction. The Immortal Emperor didn't know what Zuyun was thinking and didn't hide anything at all. Yanhun powder has a great addictive effect on us immortals. Whether it is taken by immortals or immortal officials, they will if we no longer practice hard, the Qingping Immortal Kingdom will eventually perish in this world. We are the last bloodline of the Qingping Immortal Kingdom, and it is impossible for us to perish like this. Therefore, we let them collect the smoke soul powder and hand it over. Destroy it intensively. Zhu Yunkai asked, will Yan Hansen make you addicted? The purpose of Jidan sect's involvement in Yan Hansen is obvious. But for the immortal, it turned out to be such an effect, which he did not expect at all. Yes, the Immortal Emperor said with a bitter smile, there are a lot of smoke souls scattered on Qingping Star, but because we practice and ascend quickly, even if someone eats it, no one will care about it. But there is no hope of ascension here, and one person can eat smoke alone. After his soul is gone, if he doesn't practice, the consequences will be imagined when his lifespan is about to expire. Zuyun nodded, that was indeed the case. The most important thing is that Yanhun powder acts on the immortal roots, giving people a strange feeling of ecstasy. Most people who take it will do nothing and just lie down. From now on, this person will either if you eat Yanhun powder, you are either looking for Yanhun powder, this will cause turmoil. Fellow Taoist asked about this, but does Jidan sect use smoke to disperse the soul? The Immortal Emperor was a very human being, so Zuyun asked him about Jidan sect and Yan Hansan, so it was easy for him to connect with him. Yes, I now suspect that Qingping Immortal Kingdom has a passage connected to Jidan sect, but you don't know it? The Immortal Emperor was shocked and exclaimed, impossible. What's impossible? Zuyun looked into the distance and said, the Jidan sect is also on the periphery of your so-called Immortal Mountain, but you are inside the Immortal Mountain. If the Jidan sect is plotting to ascend the immortal weapon in the secret realm, What do you think?